Hi, Paul Slackers, Good News Broadcast. Speaking to Jeff Pulver. Hi, Jeff. How are you?
Hi. How are you?
I'm okay. Good. You were speaking at the iBreakfast 2.0 event recently, right?
Yes, it was. It was a great breakfast.
Super. Our good friend and board member Alan Brody has been doing technology seminars and cutting edge for quite a long time. We've had the good fortune to record and broadcast quite a few of them. And Jeff, you've had a long-standing career here in technology in something called, many different things, but I'm going to say the word IP, Internet IP, or just IP in general. What does IP stand for?
Internet Protocol.
Okay. What does that mean?
It's the technology used for people, devices, things to communicate on the Internet.
Okay.
In general, and it's basically a protocol that's generally referred to as TCP/IP. It was the underlying architecture of what makes the Internet the Internet. It was developed by Robert Cohn and Vince Cerf and a whole bunch of people in the early days of what is now the Internet. But there was a lot of work that was done by many people. And anyway, it's IP is the, some people hear IP, they think they think intellectual property. Other people think it's they really don't know what it is, but it's really the protocol, and it's sort of generic terms. Hello.
So yeah, hi. I don't know what that was. It was the Internet calling us.
It was the Internet saying hello. But anyway, it's the protocols that make up the Internet. It's a set of rules, if you will, that define the way that communication happens.
Okay. Now, when you were a little boy, the Internet wasn't around?
The Internet came into my life in the mid to late 80s, but what was around and still around is amateur radio.
Amateur radio.
I've been a ham radio operator since the mid-'70s.
Uh-huh.
And so communication's been part of my life really the whole time.
Uh-huh.
So I grew up on the radio, and what's beautiful about amateur radio is that, and for that matter, for anyone who was a CB operator too, the moment you set up your antenna and your radio, you all of a sudden you have your own social identity. And on CB you can make up a name or a handle for yourself. On ham radio, the government gives you your social identity known as your call sign. And you can communicate with anyone you want to. Usually it's people outside your neighborhood. And the conversations, you're on equal footing with anyone you may be talking to, regardless of gender, race, religion, or anything. And it's pretty an amazing community of people who I grew up around. And so, regardless of the fact that I might have not known too many kids growing up, when I was on the radio, I had access to the world, and the ham radio to me was my gateway to communicate. And so I would spend sometimes 40 to 60 hours a week on the radio, making all sorts of contacts around the world. And I kind of grew up there and invested a lot of my time, effort, and energy. And all these years later, in 1995, I discovered my hobby all over again, but it manifested itself in a technology known as Internet telephony that was popularized by an Israeli company called Vocaltech when they launched the Internet phone back in February 1995. And what I first saw was the fact that, in fact, on the Internet, voice is just an application. It wasn't a service, which sort of the foreshadowing of the communications revolution that happened afterwards when the voice over IP technology kind of revolutionized telecom. But my hook into all this is the fact that I've been a ham radio operator my whole life, and it's just sort of the way I look at things. And today, inside the Internet, whether we're in the world of Web 3.0 or 2.0 or whatever, it's still about community, it's still about communications, and it's still about and sometimes the comfort you have by talking to people in your social circles. And there's a lot, social media is a very big buzzword these days, and community is a big buzzword. And these are all things that, as a young amateur radio operator, are things that I experienced on my own, not necessarily knowing what the words were, but understood what the feelings were.
Now, it would seem to me you would have had a supportive family to, go away and be by yourself, I guess, to a certain degree, for that amount of time. That's a pretty long time.
Well, it was a supportive family who tolerated the fact that late at night I would be on the ham radio and they would hear me through their speakers and through the sewing machines and through everything else. Neighbors have tolerated the fact that at times I took over their airwaves from their TV stations and they heard me instead. A tolerable family that, we'd travel to the Caribbean and I'd be the one schlepping all the ham radio equipment with me. Horrible family that on a trip to Barbados when we had 8 days of rain, I was the only person really smiling because I was operating every day and having so much fun. Tolerable for family that tolerated the fact that I would obsess about certain things and I would insist on going places because I needed a small part and I didn't have a car because I didn't know how to drive at the time. So yeah, so yes, my family tolerated my hobbies. I have young kids who are 14, and I can sort of see a little bit of myself in my kids right now, the way they obsess about certain things too. I only could imagine what I was like, but tolerance is part of it for sure.
Now tolerant that you co-founded Vonage.
Well, it was just an idea. In the late '90s, I got involved and helped create and foster the internet communications industry, and I did that in a variety of ways, and one of the things I had done first was create an exchange, a way for entrepreneurs who were investing in things called gateways as a way to help market their telephone minutes or their internet minutes. And so, because people, up until then, if you were in the telecom industry, if you were one phone company, you would negotiate rates to deliver your telephone minutes from one country or another, and then these entrepreneurs got involved and started bypassing all that by putting these gateways in the country, so the conversations were delivered via the internet and then terminated into the local country, and this was a very gray business. And I used to facilitate meetings between these people who were in the gray markets arena, and because coming from Wall Street, I believed that there'd be a market for everything, so I established a marketplace for telecom minutes called the Minutes Exchange, and the lead investor in Minex ended up being a guy by the name of Jeff Citron. And while Minex was being funded and starting up, I shared with Jeff an idea that I had for the next startup I wanted to do, which was a broadband telephone company. And a number of months later, Minex actually rebooted itself and became Vonage. So, Vonage has its roots being a minutes exchange. And I just happened to have been fortunate to have been talking to the right person who had the resources and the willpower and the vision to take an idea and turn it into reality.
Now they're putting pictures with these words now, right?
The technology has evolved a lot so that it's not just voice on the internet these days. Video is a big component too. And in fact, the major TV networks in the last few years have been trying to focus on what their digital media strategy, what their strategy should be. They're still experimenting, but ABC, NBC, Fox, and CBS are all playing in that arena, as are most of the cable networks. And I recently launched a startup called PrimetimeRewind.tv, where we provide consumers in the United States a one-click access to watch primetime TV shows. And rather than having to navigate to an individual network site and then find the show that you like, we provide an aggregated way to look at the shows and click through to watch what you want. Because what's been interesting to me is that as each of the major networks develop their strategy, ABC.com does not point to NBC.com, which doesn't point to Fox.com or CBS.com. It's as if, what's interesting is, right now today, you don't need a TV, an antenna, a monitor, or a cable box to watch a primetime TV show. All you need is a computer with broadband internet access. But what's evolved is as if you needed 4 of these, because they become silos. Because the network sites have no reason to, due to competition, to support each other. They don't. And at the end of the day, if you're just the consumer who's a fan of House or Heroes or any other number of shows that are out there, you have to seek out the sites where these shows are. So I provide a one-click access to to watch it, because I believe that in the near future, more and more consumers will be going to the internet to watch television, and that's my focus has shifted a little bit from just voice on the internet, which is really these days now pretty mainstream and pretty understood technology, to video. And I still have my hands wet. I do have a startup that's 12 years old and counting called World Dialup. I believe that the world should talk to each other for free, and so it is a startup focusing on enabling effectively free communications between anybody who has a broadband computer or broadband device and someone who wants to talk to someone just on net. But a lot of the last year or so, I've spent more time focusing on video, and I certainly believe that there's a great opportunity for people who understand the industry and understand where things are going.
And the networks, being a former network guy, CBS and PBS, commercials still run, right? You're not.
Yeah, it's basically right now. If you go on CBS.com and watch any of the shows that they have available, what you'll notice is that there's usually it's sort of a 1950s model where there's one sponsor who will sponsor a show. And there's pre-roll prior to the show starting, and I think it's typically 3 additional 30-second clips that get played during the duration of the episode.
Okay,
so it's still primitive. There's I had an idea a number of years ago. I called it the digital popcorn challenge, or at least the idea that what if tomorrow the sequel to Dark Knight premieres both in the movie theaters and in your broadband living room? Who makes money from the digital popcorn? It's understood that in the movie theaters, lots of profits to the owners go from the concession side. But if a movie or a TV show is premiering on the internet and there's no such ability to create that local concession, how do you make money? Well, the answer comes from building a portal that brings people together where what they have in common is they're watching the content. And I believe that as much as there's an IMDb today where you can go to see the stars from various shows and what they were in, that content such as the clothing that people are wearing, glasses as much as that they have, or all articles of clothing, as well as any kind of background music and soundtracks, all that gets databased. So when you're watching a film or you're watching a show, you can right-click on the object and see who makes it, left-click and actually purchase it while the show is still playing. And I believe that more and more you'll see that type of commerce being enabled. I also believe that the advertisers start to be able to get with pinpoint accuracy an understanding of the demographics of what's being seen, so that if you're watching a movie premiere and they go to a commercial break, what you'll find is that based on your demographics and based on the pool of advertisers who are supporting the show, that you'll have a different advertisement pointing to you than pointing to someone else with a different set of demographics, and the advertisers could even be sensitive to the content that you're watching, so that if there was a medical scene that was highly graphic, perhaps Johnson & Johnson doesn't want to have their ad played, so you can get an Adidas commercial instead. So in the near future, I think that you will find advertisers supporting this type of concept where people will be able to have a much better accurate ads delivered to them, and frankly a much better experience for people who want to monetize and create commerce on top of the content that's seen.
The big word used to be in the ad agency is the word waste. So you now can eliminate a good deal of that, because waste in the sense of there's certain market people that are just not interested more than likely in your product. So
right. So in those cases, you can just bypass that and find those that who are, and then maybe even go deeper in terms of a level of interaction, or at least an understanding. And really, the nice thing about the digital medium is that before, it truly was a one-way broadcast model, so that the producers, the writers, the actors, no one really got a chance to interact with the people who were watching them. And what the internet does offer is a one-to-many type model, so that if people wanted to, they actually could scale and could interact with many people simultaneously, and get a feel for the pulse in terms of what's available and deal with feedback on a more real-time basis.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's very exciting. I'm crazy about what you do. We've just celebrated our 10th anniversary broadcasting on the web, and we started off with the word broadcast, even though it was a .com, knowing that one day it would be much more similar to CBS and the networks, that people would be watching our web broadcasts on their TV. It's good news.
It's great
it's
news.
taken a while, though.
It's great news. Yes, it definitely is definitely happening, and it's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today.
Well, lastly, just one quick one, because it's so good and it's rock and roll to me. And actually, I think I've interviewed almost all the groups that you are kind enough and caring enough to be a patron and supporter of Diabetes Research Institute, Robin Hood, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, VH1, and their Save the Music program, and Songwriters Hall of Fame. Where's the give back in you? How'd that come about?
It's just part of the culture. I mean, I believe in giving, rather than taking. It's just part of what makes me me. And I have certainly try to support the arts as much as possible, and I have certain charities that I have my own connections with, which I just believe in giving. I think that if more people gave, that the world would be a little bit better place to be. And I just have a strong passion for music. I tried having an indie record label for a number of years, didn't go too far. I also had my own internet radio station for about 8 years, on and off, and never figured out the models that would work, although I tried real hard. And I just think that at the end of the day, people do what they want to, but if you can help someone a little bit and be invest in someone's dream or help someone out, it's a good thing to do. And I certainly encourage to give from the heart and see what happens after that.
Okay, Jeff, thank you very much for sharing your good news, and there's a lot of it here, and keep up the good work, and I see your mind's in a very good place. You want people to be able to communicate together. You want them to communicate for free together. Actually, to me, it's almost like a right.
Well, yeah, no, I really think that we could. I think there'd be less war if more people spoke to each other.
100%.
So communications is key. And hey, keep up the good news, and look forward to catching up again.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.